She grabbed the scissors, and in one horrifying second, snip. My daughter's hair was on the floor. And that's when everything changed. Imagine taking your child for a long-awaited makeover, only for a stranger to cut their hair without warning. I saw red, and trust me, she got exactly what she deserved. I've dealt with sieges, assassination attempts, and diplomatic crises, but absolutely none of that prepared me for what happened on an otherwise peaceful afternoon at Le Belle Tresses, the fanciest salon in town. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't flaunt my position. In fact, I take pride in not being recognized. You wouldn't think the head of the royal guard would be walking around in sweatpants, but here we are. And on this particular day, I had one mission and one mission only. Give my daughter the best dang haircut of her life. Now my kid, she's a trooper, stronger than most adults I know. She's had more than her fair share of struggles with mobility, but never once has she let it slow her down. And today was a big deal for her. She'd spent weeks scrolling through hair inspo pics, debating colors, styles, and bangs versus no bangs like it was a matter of national security. We had a pre-booked appointment, and my daughter was absolutely glowing with excitement as I wheeled her into the salon. The atmosphere inside was pure luxury. Soft music, the gentle scent of expensive hair products, and staff dressed like they belonged in a high-fashion magazine spread. That's when I heard it, the distant rumbling of chaos approaching. And then, "Excuse me," like an ominous battle cry. The voice sliced through the air. Conversations halted. Stylists froze mid-brushstroke. Even the scissors stopped snipping, as if fearing for their lives. I turned, and there she was, the Karen. She was the final boss of entitlement, the absolute physical embodiment of the phrase, "Do you know who I am?" And unfortunately for all of us, she had a child in tow, a pouty, 8-year-old gremlin clutching an iPad like it contained the secrets of the universe. Karen stomped up to the receptionist, flipping her freshly fried platinum blonde bob in a way that suggested she had deeply wronged her stylist in a past life. "I need my son's hair cut." Now, the receptionist, bless her heart, remained professional. "Do you have an appointment?" Karen scoffed. "I don't need an appointment. We're regulars." The receptionist smiled, the kind of smile someone gives when they're seconds away from choosing violence. "Unfortunately, we're fully booked today. But if you'd like, I can schedule you for next week." Karen gasped, like she had just been slapped with a wet fish. "Next week? This is unacceptable. My son needs his hair cut today." Her son, still absorbed in his iPad, muttered, "I don't even want a haircut." Karen ignored him completely. Her gaze swiveled, scanning the room like a hawk looking for a weaker animal to bully, and then she locked onto us. "Oh." She marched over, heels clicking like an approaching storm of bad decisions. "Why is she getting her hair done before us?" she asked, voice dripping with theatrical outrage. She gestured dramatically at my daughter. "She's just sitting there." The entire salon gasped. I turned my head so slowly, you'd think I was in a horror movie about to reveal a demon standing behind me. "Excuse me," I said casually, because I have learned that the calmer you are, the more terrifying you become. Karen, unfortunately, mistook my calm for weakness. "It's just that my son needs his haircut more." She's already sitting, so it's not like she has anywhere to be. The salon went dead silent. Even the receptionist's fingers hovered above the keyboard, awaiting my next move. I took a deep breath, a deep, calming breath, because I have been trained in combat. I have led elite warriors in a battle, and I was not about to get into a public brawl with Karen from suburbia. Instead, I went with, "She has an appointment." "You don't." Karen huffed. "Well, surely the stylist can just do a little trim. It'll only take 5 minutes." "No." Karen stared at me like I just kicked her pet chihuahua. "Excuse me." "No." I repeated, slowly, just in case the concept of boundaries was as foreign to her as basic manners. Karen's nostrils flared. "Oh, so you're one of those people." "Ah, yes." The universal phrase for, "I am about to say something very offensive, and you're going to want to throw me into the sun." I square my shoulders, already bracing for impact. "Wonder what people?" I asked. She tilted her head, arms folded, lips pursed in a way that screamed resting lawsuit face. "You know, people who think they deserve special treatment." I felt my soul leave my body. Karen, oblivious to the impending consequences of her actions, kept going. "Look, all I'm saying is that some of us have busy lives. You would understand. You probably don't even have a job. Now, let me be clear. I am a calm person, a reasonable person. But when a woman who spends her entire afternoon bullying minimum wage workers tries to lecture me about hard work, that's when I start to see red." The stylists exchanged looks. The receptionist subtly reached for the phone, possibly to call security or an exorcist. Karen, utterly unaware she was standing in a pit of gasoline while holding a lit match, rolled her eyes. Fine. If she goes first, at least tell the stylist not to do anything crazy. I mean, let's be real. What's the point of a fancy haircut when She motioned vaguely toward my daughter. And that's when I knew this was war. If you've ever been in a salon, you know there's a certain sacred energy about it. It's a place of peace, self-care, and the faint scent of overpriced avocado oil. It's where people go to feel pampered, refreshed, and at least 30% more attractive. And yet, here we were, in a high-end sanctuary of beauty, with Karen stomping around like a medieval warlord who had just been denied a conquest. She was seething, her freshly baked platinum bob quivering in indignation. "This is discrimination," she declared, voice trembling with true righteous fury. Now, let's pause for a second, because when a Karen drops the D word, we're about 10 seconds away from security being involved. The receptionist, bless her saintly patience, massaged her temples like she could already feel the migraine forming. "Ma'am, I already explained. Our appointments are fully booked. Your son is welcome to wait, but we simply can't accommodate you without a scheduled time." Karen's eye twitched. "So what you're saying is you're choosing them over US?" She flung a wildly accusatory finger in our direction. Now, in this moment, I had two choices. Ignore her, act like she was a malfunctioning Roomba, and let her run out of steam. Engage, which meant officially signing up for the worst argument of my life. Unfortunately, Karen didn't give me a choice, because instead of taking the L and walking away like a normal person, she decided to double down on insanity. She turned toward my daughter and scoffed, loud enough for the entire salon to hear. "I just don't see why SHE should get to go first when she's just sitting there doing nothing." And there it was. The exact moment this went from mildly annoying to, "Oh, Karen, you have screwed up royally and you don't even know it yet." The room fell silent. You know that feeling when a bartender cuts the music right before a bar fight? That was the exact vibe. Even the hair dryers seemed to power down, as if they, too, wanted to bear witness to whatever was about to unfold. My daughter, to her infinite credit, didn't flinch. Instead, she slowly, deliberately, turned to Karen, blinking at her with the kind of deadpan expression that should have sent this woman running. And yet, Karen did not run. She continued, "Look, my son actually needs a haircut. He has school, important events." Meanwhile, she's already just sitting there. What difference does it make if she waits a little longer? I stared at Karen. Karen stared back. And for a brief, fleeting moment, I actually pitied her, because she didn't realize who she was dealing with. She didn't know that I was a woman trained to command entire battalions, that I could disarm a grown man in under 2 seconds, that I had, at one point, personally tackled an assassin to the ground while wearing a full ceremonial uniform. No, Karen thought she was talking to just some ordinary parent. And Karen? Karen had chosen poorly. I inhaled deeply, standing to my full height, because if there's one thing I know how to do, it's make myself very, very intimidating when needed. "What did you just say?" I asked, my voice calm, but in the same way the ocean is calm before a tsunami. Karen rolled her eyes, waving a dismissive hand. "Oh, relax. It's not like I meant anything by it. I just think it's unfair that she gets to go first when she what?" Karen blinked, finally sensing she had walked into some kind of verbal minefield. "I just mean that, well, obviously, she has more time than my son does." This was it. The exact moment she realized she had run out of runway. The stylist had stopped working entirely, staring at the situation like it was the season finale of their favorite drama. Even the receptionist had lowered her phone, watching like she was seconds away from recording the greatest customer service horror story of her life. And then, my daughter, legend that she is, leaned forward slightly in her wheelchair, tilted her head, and in the sweetest, most innocent voice imaginable asked, "Ma'am, are you suggesting I don't have a life?" Karen's face drained of color so fast, I thought she was about to pass out. "What? No, that's not what because it sounds like you're saying I just sit around all day doing nothing. I have never seen a grown woman sweat so fast. That's not. I just meant that." My daughter gave her the most perfectly timed, disappointed head shake. Wow. And then, the masterstroke. She turned to Karen's own child, still deeply invested in whatever cartoon crime syndicate was happening on his iPad. "Do you think I should have to wait just because I use a wheelchair?" Karen's son, bless his clueless little heart, didn't even look up. "What? I don't care. Can we go home now?" The pure betrayal on Karen's face. Absolute shattered dignity. It was beautiful. The salon erupted. A stylist in the corner audibly choked on her gum. Someone near the shampoo station had to turn away so they wouldn't burst out laughing. Even the receptionist covered her mouth, pretending to cough while her eyes twinkled with delight. Karen? Karen was mortified. You. She turned back to me, clearly desperate to salvage what little was left of her pride. You're being incredibly rude. You know that? I blinked, feigning deep, deep concern. Oh, I'm sorry. Was I supposed to let you insult my kid and say nothing? Karen opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again, and then, grasping at the last straw, she had left. She wheeled toward the receptionist and shrieked, I want to speak to the owner. The receptionist, clearly having the time of her life, tapped a single manicured finger on the desk. The owner's chairing a conference today, but I can tell her you said hi. A conference? Oh, that is ridiculous. Who even does that? The receptionist smiled. The royal family. And that was the moment I saw true, existential dread wash over Karen's face. Because she had just insulted the head of the royal guard's daughter in a salon owned by the royal family. And that was just the beginning of her problems. Let's be clear, there are bad decisions, and then there are you just signed your own doom decisions. And grabbing a pair of salon scissors to chop off a stranger's hair in a royal establishment, that is the hall of fame of bad decisions. But Karen? Karen had transcended bad decisions. She was currently operating on a level of entitlement so powerful it could probably bend the laws of physics. The salon was still vibrating from Karen's previous meltdown. Everyone had just witnessed her fail spectacularly, publicly humiliated by her own child, shut down by a receptionist who didn't even break a sweat, and most importantly, she had finally realized who she was dealing with. And yet, instead of taking the loss and leaving with some dignity, Karen did what all great villains do at the climax of their downfall. She doubled down. I watched it happen in real time. Her eyes darted around the salon, her brain scrambling for any last way to assert dominance. Her hands twitched, fingers tapping aggressively against her purse strap, her jaw clenching and unclenching like a woman who had just been personally wronged by the universe. Then, her eyes landed on my daughter, and that's when I knew something bad was about to happen. Now, I'd like to tell you that I saw it coming, that I sensed the danger and intercepted her before she even had the chance. But no, I, a trained military strategist, a high-ranking commander, a person who has literally stared down assassins, did not see this coming. 1 second, Karen was standing there, seething. The next, she had lunged toward one of the salon stations, lightning fast, fueled by pure, deranged entitlement, and grabbed a pair of scissors. The room collectively inhaled. A sharp, synchronized gasp. I barely had time to process what she was doing before. Snip. Silence. Pure, horrified, dead silence. Time slowed to a crawl. A chunk of my daughter's hair, beautiful, long, carefully cared-for hair, floated down to the floor in an almost cinematic freefall. A stylist dropped her curling iron with a clatter. Another let out an actual audible scream, like we were in a horror movie. The receptionist had both hands covering her mouth, eyes so wide they could have doubled as dinner plates. And Karen? Karen was standing there, victorious, clutching the forbidden scissors in her hand like she had just defeated a final boss. There, she huffed, tossing her perfectly highlighted bob like she had just performed some kind of noble public service. I could not believe what I had just witnessed. It took me a full 5 seconds to even register what had happened. Because who does that? No, seriously, who does that? Who wakes up and thinks, yes, today I will commit hair theft. Even for Karen, this was beyond unhinged. The audacity, the sheer, criminal, felony-level audacity. And my daughter? My daughter just stared at her. Not in shock, not in fear. No, she stared at Karen with the cold, dead expression of someone who is now officially out of mercy. The exact same expression I had when I once cornered an intruder in a hallway and asked them if they wanted to rethink their life choices. Karen, blissfully unaware that she had just signed her own social death warrant, crossed her arms and smirked. Well, now she doesn't have to wait for a haircut, does she? Silence. Absolute radio silence. And then a single voice broke through the tension. A stylist, hands trembling, whispered, "Did she just commit hair treason?" And that's when all hell broke loose. The first person to move was the salon manager. She was a petite woman, no taller than 5 feet, who had up until now remained behind the reception desk, quietly observing the chaos unfold. But the moment Karen wielded those scissors like a lunatic, oh, she was out for blood. She stormed forward, finger already pointed like a lawyer about to destroy someone in court. Ma'am, I don't know what kind of unholy possessed spirit crawled into your body today, but what in the name of all that is holy made you think that was okay? Karen rolled her eyes. Oh, calm down. It's just hair. It'll grow back. If she had any survival instincts, she would have stopped talking right then. But no, Karen had fully embraced the role of salon supervillain. She scoffed, crossing her arms. Honestly, if she was that sensitive about her hair, she shouldn't have flaunted it like that. This time, the entire salon gasped. An actual stylist grabbed her chest like she had just been personally wounded by the sheer audacity of that statement. One of the shampoo girls muttered something in Italian, presumably cursing Karen's entire bloodline. I heard one stylist, in a complete daze, whisper, This is worse than the woman who brought in her own bleach and melted her scalp. Karen, still wildly unaware of the severity of her crimes, turned to me with the most infuriating look of fake innocence. You're not actually mad, are you? And that's when I snapped. I took a deep breath, stepped forward, and then very, very calmly, I asked, Karen, do you know what I do for a living? She blinked. I smiled, the kind of smile that should have sent her running. Because I protect royalty. Karen's smirk wavered. I took another step forward. Do you know what happens when someone, I don't know, assaults the family of a high-ranking official? Karen visibly paled, but, true to form, she still refused to admit defeat. Oh, don't be so dramatic. It's not like I hurt her. And then, before I could utter a single word, the salon doors burst open, and in walked 3 royal guards, dressed in full uniform, looking extremely serious. The entire room froze. The receptionist, finally breaking her silence, let out a shaky exhale. Oh, well, this just got interesting. And Karen? Karen finally looked like she understood that she had really, really messed up. But unfortunately for her, it was far, far too late. Because this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. And Karen? She was about to find out exactly what happens when you commit hair treason against the wrong family. If there were ever a moment in life that deserved dramatic background music, this was it. Karen, entitlement incarnate, destroyer of peace, wielder of unauthorized scissors, stood there, completely unaware that she was now on a collision course with her own social annihilation. Meanwhile, the entire salon, had just realized who I was, and the shift in energy was palpable. The royal guards had just entered, 3 of them, in full uniform, radiating an aura of we do not have time for nonsense. And the moment the first stylist caught sight of them, she froze. Her scissors, previously poised to snip a client's split ends, clattered to the floor. Her hands flew to her mouth. Her eyes darted back to me, to the guards, back to me. Her face went through a full slideshow of emotions. Confusion. Why are royal guards here? Horror. Oh no. Oh no, no, no. Panic. What have we done? Then she whispered, voice barely above a breath. Oh no. A second stylist, who had been halfway through curling someone's hair, paused, curling iron dangling uselessly in her hand. She turned, very slowly, to look at me. Her jaw dropped. One of the shampoo girls made a noise that can only be described as a strangled wheeze. And the receptionist? The receptionist, who up until now had been resisting the urge to strangle Karen with her bare hands, was now gripping the desk for dear life. Because she had just put it together too. Karen? Karen remained blissfully ignorant. And then she made it worse. She laughed. A loud, mocking, self-satisfied laugh, like she had just delivered the greatest clapback in salon history. Oh, calm down, people. It's just hair. It grows back. What's everyone so worked up about? The room went deathly silent. The tension in the air could have cut steel. One of the stylists, an older woman with years of wisdom in her eyes, let out a deep, exhausted sigh. Oh, honey. Karen blinked. And then I stood up. I wasn't trying to be dramatic. Really, I wasn't. But when a literal commander, trained in the art of intimidation, well-versed in battle strategy, stood up from my chair, the entire salon reacted as if a mountain had just risen from the earth. The guards immediately straightened, standing at full attention. A young stylist stumbled backward into a chair. The receptionist actually dropped a pen. The curling iron stylist let out an audible whimper. Even the client in the shampoo chair, a woman who had up until now been completely checked out, scrolling on her phone, slowly looked up, saw me, and immediately put her phone down. Everyone knew. Everyone understood. Except for one person. One lone, doomed soul. Karen. She squinted at me, clearly confused by the dramatic shift in atmosphere. What? She scoffed. Why is everyone acting so weird? Oh, Karen. Oh, sweet, clueless Karen. This was it. The moment of truth. The moment she would finally realize the depths of her miscalculation. I took a step forward, and in my calmest, most composed voice, I asked, Karen, do you know who I am? She snorted. Actually snorted. No, should I? I smiled. The kind of smile that says, oh, you're about to find out. And then, just as I was about to speak, the receptionist lost it. You've got to be kidding me. Everyone jumped. Karen flinched. But the receptionist? The receptionist was having an actual breakdown. She threw down her pen, slammed her hands onto the desk, and, in a voice that could have shattered glass, shrieked, She's the head of the Royal Guard, you absolute imbecile. Silence. Pure, suffocating, I have just witnessed a life-ending mistake silence. Karen blinked, laughed. Then, seeing that no one else was laughing, she finally started to look concerned. What? The stylist, still clutching her heart, whimpered. Oh, you are so done. I watched it happen in real time. Karen's brain was loading the information like a slow, glitchy computer. The realization of what she had done was crawling up her spine like a cold, dead hand. She turned to her daughter, who had been quietly edging toward the door. Sweetie, what's a royal guard? Her daughter, who had clearly inherited a working survival instinct, looked at me, then at the guards, then back at her mother. Then, in the most exasperated teenager voice imaginable. Mom, she protects actual royalty. Like the Queen. The Queen. Karen's entire body locked up. I could practically see her mind scrolling through every single word she had said today. The demands. The insults. The haircut theft. The assault on the daughter of a high-ranking official. Her face cycled through 5 stages of grief in record time. Denial, no. No, this is a prank. Anger. Why didn't anyone tell me sooner? Bargaining. Maybe I can talk my way out of this. Depression. Oh, I'm doomed. Acceptance. Guess I'm about to be escorted out in handcuffs. She opened her mouth. I raised a hand. She shut up. Good choice. And then, with all the grace of a woman who had just realized she made a fatal mistake, she slowly turned back to me. Her lip trembled. Her hands fidgeted. And then, in a voice barely above a whisper, can we pretend this never happened? Oh, Karen, not a chance. Because this was just the beginning. If Karen thought she could cut and run, pun absolutely intended, she was about to learn that there are consequences for her actions. Because in that moment, as she stood frozen in sheer, dawning horror, she had no idea just how deep the hole she had dug for herself truly went. But she was about to find out. Oh, was she about to find out? Karen's entire body had locked up, like someone had just pressed a giant pause button on her brain. I could practically hear the gears grinding as she desperately tried to process the catastrophe she had just orchestrated. She turned to the salon workers, as if searching for an escape route. But the stylists? Oh, they were not about to save her. The receptionist, who had just shouted my title, was now gripping the counter like she needed to physically hold onto reality. One of the younger stylists had fully retreated behind a chair, peering over it like a soldier in a trench waiting for an airstrike. Even Karen's own daughter, who up until now had been rolling her eyes at her mother's antics, was now slowly, carefully inching toward the door like a hostage trying not to attract attention. And me? I was dead silent, cold, unmoving. I tilted my head just slightly, and Karen actually flinched. Then, in the calmest, most deliberate voice possible, I spoke. You have no idea who you're messing with. The room held its breath. And then, I reached into my coat and pulled out my phone. Now listen, I wasn't even angry anymore. No. This wasn't about anger. This was business. This was justice. I dialed a number. 1 ring. 2. And then, in a voice that sent chills down the spines of everyone in the room, I said, bring the detail. The silence that followed? Heavy. Oppressive. Karen, still clinging to whatever delusions of control she had left, let out a weak, nervous laugh. What does that mean? She stammered. I simply put my phone away. And then, almost as if summoned by a higher force, we all heard it. The distant sound of tires screeching to a halt. Now, let's paint this picture properly. This wasn't one security car pulling up. No, that would have been too subtle. This was an entire security convoy. 3 black SUVs. Flashing lights. Doors slamming open in unison. And then, like a perfectly choreographed military operation, 6 uniformed security officers stepped out. The energy shift in the salon was instantaneous. A client, who had just walked in, completely oblivious to the ongoing disaster, saw the security team and immediately backed out. The receptionist? Her soul left her body. And Karen? Karen looked like she had just been hit by divine judgment. Karen's face went through every known human emotion in less than 5 seconds. Shock, confusion, fear, denial, regret. She turned to her only remaining lifeline, her daughter. "Sweetie, tell them this is all a misunderstanding." Her daughter, now fully aware that her mother had royally screwed up, slowly shook her head. "Mom, I don't think they take misunderstandings." Karen spun back to me. She opened her mouth, probably to spout some last-ditch excuse. But I raised a single finger, and she immediately shut up. "Good choice." As if this couldn't get any worse for her, one of the guards stepped forward, Captain Reynolds. A man who did not tolerate nonsense. A man whose entire job was to enforce order. And right now, he was staring directly at Karen like she was an active security threat. "Do we have a problem, Commander?" he asked. His voice was crisp, unyielding. Karen, who had just realized my actual rank, let out a high-pitched, wheezing noise. Her entire soul was malfunctioning. I let the tension sit, let her stew in the weight of her mistakes. And then, in the most eerily calm voice possible, I spoke. "This woman just assaulted my daughter." A stylist in the back audibly choked. "Karen?" Karen made a sound like a deflating balloon. It wasn't. Captain Reynolds turned to her. And when I say his expression could have frozen fire, I mean it. "Name?" he asked. Karen stammered. Karen." Reynolds slowly nodded, then pulled out a notepad. "Karen, last name?" Karen's face turned whiter than a ghost. At this point, Karen was panicking. Her entire body was radiating, "I need to get out of here right now," energy. So in what was possibly the worst decision of her entire life, she made a move. A very, very bad move. She grabbed her daughter's wrist and tried to bolt for the door. Bad. Very, very bad. Because before she could even take 2 steps, Reynolds simply gestured, and 2 security officers moved. Fast. Before Karen even realized what was happening, she was blocked, stopped, surrounded. Her eyes widened. Her breath hitched. "Why, you can't do this," she screeched. Reynolds didn't even blink. "Karen, I suggest you take a seat." Karen did not move. And so, one of the guards very, very politely pulled out a chair. And then, with all the gentleness of a parent seating a fussy toddler, they sat her down. Her daughter had already let go of her hand and backed away. And Karen finally understood that she had 0 control left. Now, at this point, Karen was breathing like a trapped animal, sweating, fidgeting, spiraling. And then I leaned in, just close enough for her to hear me. And in a whisper, just for her ears, I said, "Hair grows back." Karen looked like she was going to pass out, because this was only the beginning of her reckoning. And she knew it. The silence in the salon is thick enough to cut with the same scissors Karen just used. Karen, standing there with a smug little smirk, is completely oblivious to the sheer weight of what she has just done. She has, before a room full of stunned witnesses, snipped off a chunk of a child's hair. A child in a wheelchair, a child of the head of the freaking royal guard. And now, she's just standing there, arms crossed, her precious angel, looking up at her with a wide-eyed admiration that only an entitled parent could cultivate. There. Now she doesn't need a haircut, does she? Karen says, brushing non-existent lint off her tacky, animal print blouse. Gasps. Murmurs. Absolute horror. One stylist actually drops a curling iron in shock. The receptionist puts a hand to her chest, like she's about to faint. Karen, however, does not care. She tosses her hair over her shoulder and shrugs, turning to the now horrified salon employees. "Well, since there's clearly time now, go ahead and cut my daughter's hair." The salon is so quiet, you can hear the air conditioner humming. My daughter, meanwhile, sits absolutely frozen, holding onto the snipped-off strands like a lifeline, her eyes brimming with tears. And that is the moment I see red. I have endured a lifetime of battles, countless strategic negotiations, and intense moments of life-or-death decision-making. But never have I felt such an intense, unshakable need for vengeance. Karen has no idea what's coming, but the stylists do. One of them, an older woman with short, spiky platinum hair, and I've seen some things energy, slowly removes her glasses and rubs her temples. Oh no, she mutters. Karen, of course, laughs. Oh, please, she scoffs. It's just hair. It grows back. Now can we move on? The air shifts. Something primal and powerful crackles in the atmosphere. The stylists exchange glances. One of them, the youngest, peppiest one with bubblegum pink hair, turns very, very slowly toward Karen. And then, with the sweetest, most saccharine smile imaginable, she says, "You know, Karen, we hate seeing an unfinished haircut." Karen's smirk falters. "What?" she says. The stylist tilts her head. "Let's fix yours." And then, before Karen can react, snip! Karen screams. Absolute, ear-splitting, dog whistle-level shrieking. A fresh chunk of her own hair flutters to the floor, severed with surgical precision. Karen clutches her head, mouth agape, as the stylist casually twirls the scissors between her fingers like a master assassin. The entire salon erupts into chaos. Karen's precious angel gasps in horror, staring at the severed lock of blonde-streaked, overprocessed hair like it's a fallen comrade. My daughter, meanwhile, she blinks. Then she smiles. The first real, genuine smile since this nightmare began. Karen, however, is not smiling. "You maniac," she screeches, lunging for the stylist. But before she can grab her, the stylist holds up the scissors again, twirling them lazily, her smile never wavering. "Ah!" Karen, she sing-songs. Karen freezes. Her eyes dart to the scissors, then to the other stylists, who are all watching with thinly veiled amusement. And then she sees me. I fold my arms, completely unbothered. "You're lucky she only took a little," I say coolly. "I was about to call in a royal stylist to shave your head completely." Karen gasps. Her hands fly to her already tragic haircut, touching it like it's a precious artifact that needs immediate preservation. The realization sets in. She has been publicly humiliated. She, Karen, has become the victim of an unsolicited haircut. It is, to put it lightly, an absolute disaster. "You can't do this to me," she shrieks. The receptionist, who has finally regained her composure, clears her throat. "Actually, we can," she says cheerfully, tapping on her keyboard. She spins the screen around. Karen's name is now bolded under a fresh new category. Police car light permanently banned. Police car light. Karen chokes. "W what?" The receptionist shrugs. "We have a very strict don't assault children's hair policy," she says sweetly. The salon bursts into laughter. Karen's face is now several shades of red, her precious angel pulling at her sleeve, begging to leave before things get worse. But things are already worse. Because as Karen stomps toward the door, defeated, a final, cruel twist of fate occurs. Just as she reaches for the handle, she catches sight of herself in the salon mirror and screams. The fix from the stylist? A perfectly placed, hilariously noticeable, uneven chunk missing right at the front. The Karen-esque haircut possible. A mark of shame. She whips around, but no one is paying attention to her anymore. Instead, my daughter is now surrounded by the stylists, getting the most luxurious, VIP-level treatment imaginable. Free of charge. Karen? She has been dismissed. With no choice but to accept her fate, she grabs her child by the arm and storms out, muttering curses under her breath. The moment the door slams shut, the entire salon erupts into cheers. The receptionist pours champagne. The stylist high-five. And my daughter? She leans back in the chair, finally relaxed, as the head stylist personally starts fixing her hair. She glances up at me, a small smile playing on her lips. That, she says grinning, was so worth it. And as Karen disappears into the distance, presumably to cry scream into her steering wheel, I let out a breath and laugh. Yes, I say. Yes, it was.